tell us general thoughts? What did you think of the intensity, things along those lines?
I thought the spirit was good. I'm happy to. I think we got out healthy. I think that was kind of the focus today. We limited a lot of guys and held a lot of guys out. We have a mature team. I think we have 45 seniors and graduates. This is a group that has played a lot of football together, and we've had a good camp. I mean, we've had a camp where we've worked hard and it's been physical, and we need to recover now. So today was part of it was repping our depth and making sure that we feel good about those guys that are battling for snaps. And it was about resting guys that have kind of proven themselves, and it's getting right for next week and for prep for Charleston Southern. So.
It's been a few days since Diego fully participated in a practice. Is there any injury there with him?
No, I mean he had a little tightness in his calf that we felt like just taking our time with that. Today he did the end of half 2-minute stuff, and I thought he looked fine doing that. So again, he's played a lot of football. He's practiced a lot with us too. I think we got to be smart. This is going to be a long season, and part of our aim is to play better as we get into the middle and into the end of the year. So we're trying to be smart right now, and also be fresh for our opener. I think it's important, and nothing that's going to keep him from that.
How do you choose the balance between trying to hold guys out of practice to keep them healthy versus getting people more reps during the preseason?
Well, it's you do the best you can to get as many reps as you can. I think we look at snap experience, and we've accumulated a ton of snaps and return a ton of production, but I think every team is different, and there's chemistry that needs to be built. And obviously we've talked in this huddle about chemistry in our O-line. I think that group's coming along, and they've had a lot of practice together. Those guys have stayed relatively healthy. In the defensive line, we've been banged up, and so we had, I think, 5 available inside players today, one of which was Hayden Bray, who hadn't played inside at all until today. And so we needed to make sure those 5 guys could make it through to the end. One of those is Zaylen, and he's a guy that can play all 4 spots for us, but he needed to be inside tonight. So anyways, it is a balance, and certainly this isn't a program that's going to be about finding the short end of that balance. We want to be engaged in the work, but I do trust the work that we put in, and I trust the maturity of this team, and so it was a good night for us to get those guys some rest, to get them starting to recover so we can be at our best against Charleston Southern.
Are there any of these injuries that could carry over into the opener?
Well, I mean, sure. We got Lynn Seabrooks will start a return here, and we'll see where he nets out. Obviously, Eli Stowers will start a return here. We'll see where he nets out. Cole Spence seems like he's going to be back at it probably later in the week, so we got to see how he, continues to progress. I think we're going to start getting a lot of guys back as we get to the back end of this coming week, but certainly some of these will be, extended to week 1, and we'll see about availability to practice that week and availability for the game that week. But until that comes, we want to push all of them to be ready, and there's good reason to believe that the majority of them will be.
It seems like the second and third team defenses overall, but especially tonight, have really outplayed the depth offense. How do you weigh that in terms of concern about reserves on offense versus probably also excited about depth on defense?
Yeah, it's the give and the take. I think defensively, if you're playing hard and you're playing the right way, you have a chance to be disruptive. And I think particularly at the line of scrimmage, I saw disruptive play. Our offense leans on tight end play, and obviously that's a spot where we've been really thin, and so some of our depth has been called into action. as top-line players. I think they've done a good job with the ones. But we'll do well getting those guys back healthy. Again, one player out of sync in the front, and you get a tackle for loss in the backfield or a sack, which happened tonight. We got to coach through those things. So I told the team, we're not ready yet. We're not ready. And I see that more as a mental challenge right now and a focus challenge. We got to get ready. And so to me, that's twofold. One, it's getting recovered. And two, it's getting super focused on our strategy, our identity, and the things we need to do to win. But we'll see the back and forth today and the play with that defensive group. I loved the energy they brought. I thought the sideline was engaged. I thought the guys that weren't playing tonight were focused on the field, and you can win that way on defense.
Coach, where's Martell on his path to getting back, and is there any concern that he maybe hasn't had as many offensive reps as you guys might have liked with the concussion?
We had him focus on offense this summer, so he really kind of played offense exclusively because we felt like that was the biggest gap he needed to close. Obviously, he's played a lot of corner. But certainly I think there's two things we're looking at with him. One is accumulated load. So to play both ways, how that stresses your systems, and do we feel like he's accumulated the load to go out and really have a defined role on both sides of the ball. We'll know a little bit more about that as we move forward. He's a smart kid who's worked really hard. I was glad to see him back in action tonight. He is cleared to play now. We didn't want his first contact to be live contact, so we limited it that way. But a lot's to be, determined over the next 2 weeks. He will have a role on both sides. That may be a couple plays offensively, or that could be a package offensively, or if he gets back and we feel like he's built the load, that could be a more featured role. It all depends on how he responds and what we're able to get done in the next 2 weeks. And what we don't want to do is tax him out of the gate and burn him out. So we got to be smart with him too, but excited to have him back. He's a difference maker.
In the future, would you any thought to dialing back the intensity of what you guys are asking the players to do in the summer, or not related to all these injuries?
No, I actually think we've been, we've already kind of done a after action on our summer work. I think there are things we can do to avoid the soft tissue stuff that kind of came out of the summer training at the end. I honestly think we've had less of that in training camp than we've had in the past. A lot of the injuries have more to do with the collisions. We're bigger, faster, stronger. We're generating more force at the point of attack. We have a physical style on both sides of the ball, and I do think that's taken a toll. So that's where we want to be smart. And some of the stuff we were doing as a pass shell rather than having offensive line, defensive line out there, part of that's because we wanted to keep the D-line fresh, but another part of it's just unnecessary collisions. And yeah, as we continue to grow this program, I think we got to be smart with how we train the team. But I like the camp we've had. I think the guys have brought it. I've asked them to attack what's in front of them. They've done that. And now I think we have time to get these guys back healthy and to focus on Charleston Southern.
Can you tell us about the process of getting Tim Corbin here and what your conversations with him were like tonight? Well,
I think he was just strolling around in the neighborhood, and he and Maggie came out. And, he's been out of town, but Corbs is a football guy. I know he had to take off. I think he and Maggie were going to dinner, and then he's going to watch the UFC fight. So I told him I'd probably be watching it later, and we could text back and forth. But he loves football. He's taken an interest in our team. He's a dear friend and a mentor to me, and so I love having him out and around. And sometimes he gets really busy when I get some free time, and he travels as we get started. So I'll look to get him back and around the boys some as we get going. But it's great to have him out today, and always brings energy, and great guy to kind of bounce ideas off of, and I appreciate his friendship.
Coach, we saw some extended flashes from Mason Carter and Linus Suk. Can you speak to the internal development of them, as well as just the importance of continuing to develop players despite the prevalence of the portal?
Well, yeah, we want to be a balance, and I mean, I think we feel like we have a unique environment here, a unique culture, and the more we can grow people in that environment, in that culture, the more tangible or solid our identity will be when we play. And we say relatedness is our edge, and relatedness is love and care for one another. And inevitably, when you spend more time with people, you develop that love and care. And so, yes, we want to be a developmental program still. I think where it runs, with respect to the portal versus high school players is, it may not be strategic to have a 3 to 4 year wait for a player out of high school when you can go get someone with 2 years experience. So we balance that, how long that development's going to take. We want our high school players to be on the field within 2 years, even in a special teams role, to be impacting winning. Otherwise, we're going to target portal players that have a little more proven experience. No matter what, we're looking for very specific people and attitudes to come and strengthen our environment. To speak to Mason, Linus, first of all, has played a ton of football for us. I mean, this is a guy who has really sneakily become one of our most relied upon and consistent players. He's made big plays for us. It's so good to have him back, coming off the back injury. And I love that he was, made it through tonight with a heightened snap count, and I think he did really well. So, he's a great example of someone who's developed in our program, who's become a leader, who it really defines what Vanderbilt football is about. And Mason is, that high school player that we brought in and needed time. I don't know specifically what he weighed in at today, but you're talking about a guy that's gone somewhere from like 213 pounds to 245 pounds. So 30 pounds of weight added. He's toughened up. He's got a football attitude on the field. He's developing, honing pass rush skills. I'm really excited for him. So, fortunately we have good depth at the position with Miles and Keanu, but Mason's a guy that we believe in and we think can have a role for us. And in our league, he's going to have to play. And he's had a great camp, and so we're excited about that.
2 weeks from Charleston Southern, has there been any emphasis on them, if any at all? And if not, when does that process start?
Yeah, I mean, the emphasis has been on us, and it was the same a year ago. We first want to focus on us. There's 4 things you compete against: yourself. You got to win that battle before you win any of the other ones. You compete against the game. The ball bounces in funny ways. We can't chase emotion. And so that's part of our training right now. You compete against the opponent, and that can't be overly focused on them, right? Because it's got to be about your performance. But we'll start to look at their tactics and their personnel this week, and then you compete against environment. So it's been about us. It's been about our emotions and our responses. We'll shift to some Charleston Southern work this week, and really in earnest on Sunday, and get 5 good days. But certainly we'll be putting our attention to them a little bit this week as we move forward.